All right, it looks like it is time to get started. So once again, everyone, thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Heather Miller, and I'm an adult programming librarian here at the La Crosse Public Library. I'm so glad you could join us this evening for our presentation. We're very pleased to welcome BaoXiong tonight. She is a local author and founder of Moth House, an indie publishing house focused on dark genres, folklore, and female lead stories. She is the author of these wonderful books, Folklore and The Butchers, and she is the founder of Independent Hmong Farmers Corp and oh so much more. So welcome, Bo. Thank you so much for joining us, and we're so glad to have you this evening.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Heather, for that nice introduction. I'm just going to start off with a slideshow. Here we go. And I just want to start telling the process of how I became a writer. I would say for me, storytelling is like magic, and I grew up on stories, mostly grim folklore and true ghost stories as a child. And I always thought that, a good story is a compelling story can transform a person, which was true in my case. Along the way, I've just thought it was a very important thing for me to try and preserve some of the stories from my heritage and record them. So for years, I have been recording them on audio and video, just listening to my parents retell these stories that they've carried with them through generations. And finally, I just decided I should publish a book about it. And there we go.
There we go.
Sorry about that, everyone. So along the way, hearing all these folklore and understanding the importance of storytelling, which is really important to a culture like the Hmong people, I've decided that the best thing to do is just to start sharing them publicly. So again, on mothhousepress.org or mothhouse.org, there's these short stories that are free to the public. I've decided to write my first story called Folklore. And just as the definition here, anyone can Google the word, and it talks about like the beliefs, the traditional beliefs and the customs of a culture and the history of a culture. And I believe that by keeping the tradition of storytelling within our culture going, we're essentially preserving all these rich history that we might not have in the future. Especially for the Hmong culture, I believe that there isn't a lot of materials published nowadays or recorded that pertain to our culture. So I want to talk about the first book that I published, which is Folklore. And I chose the name, which it's really fitting for it. The original name is Sciencia, the story of Sciencia. But I chose Folklore because of all the other stories that I have implemented into the story. Because of the myth and the mythical creature and the superstitions and just some of the true beliefs of the Hmong culture that goes into this story. And again, Sciencia is a story about a young girl who journeys into the underworld to save her husband from death. Oh, difficulty, there we go. So why this story? The stories that my parents have told me growing up, especially my mother, a lot of them have men centered at the stories as the strong and important characters. And female characters are in there too, but they're not very depicted as characters that I would want to look up to growing up. And most of my life, I was raised to believe that being born a girl gave me less value than a boy as well. And as I grow older, obviously I know that not to be true, but there's this story, this age-old story that people have been telling for a long time in my culture. And I just realized a few years ago that I think they're telling it wrong. I have this conversation with my mom all the time, but I keep telling her like, hey, I really think the wife of the story, the wife of Sai, her name is Sia, she's the hero and my mom disagrees with me. She she believes that like the husband is the one that saves the day a lot. And yeah, and I believe that, but I'm like, hey, mom, you know, Sai dies. I'm sorry to spoil anything for anybody who has not read this book, but the husband dies at the beginning, like within the first few minutes of telling the story. He like passes away, and it's up to the wife to save him. So I believe she's the hero of the story. And I decided to also give her a hero's journey because I feel like it was cut short. But oh, I just want to talk a little bit about the story. So again, it's a dark story. It's a dark love story about these two newlyweds, Sai and Sia. And it is a non-traditional romance. It is kind of like a paranormal romance. It's filled with superstitions, spirits, and spells. And I want to talk about a little bit, just touch a little bit about some of the superstitions, a little bit about spirits, and a little bit about spells. If any of you have not read the book yet, or if you have, I hope you did not miss the prologue. That's a really interesting chapter, and it's about the villain before the villain became. It's about the making of a villain, I would say. And part of it also features a Hmong taboo that is still true to this day. And in the book, it's mentioned as a drop of blood between lovers. And this sounds so silly for me to even say it out loud. But so essentially, it's like lovers who make a pact with each other by pricking their fingers and exchanging blood, or in a really disgusting way, drinking each other's blood, and that just starts a really dangerous cycle, and it leads to in life, and that pact puts them together in life and in death, and in some strange, bizarre cases, people have reported, you know, being haunted by dead lovers. And I know it sounds so odd for me to say that out loud, but again, that is a very strange, superstitious taboo that is, you know, we in our culture we try to avoid that, and it's frowned upon. And I want to talk about the importance of words. So in my family, especially, my mother would always stress how important words are, how we talk to each other. In the first chapter of the book, Sia has gone to live with her husband and in his family, and she has these nightmares. And her mother-in-law makes her this necklace, as you can kind of see it there. It's called a nightmare charm, and it's supposed to ward off nightmares. Well, and my mom had made that for me, but they enchant this while the person making the charm, they would use words to enchant the charm to ward off the nightmares. And that also kind of like just is also like a strong indication of how powerful words are. My mom would always say, be careful what you say, and who you say it to and how you say it, because you can accidentally curse them. So, I mean, like, don't say negative things to people is what she's trying to say to me. And I just wanted to read the lines from this page where Sis Mother explained, words are powerful. They can bring change, healing, and curses. So be careful how you speak. And again, in the Hmong culture, we use words as blessing as well. During blessing rituals and ceremonies, families would gather around the person that they're there for, to, if the person is a newborn, or if the person is sick, or if the person had just graduated high school, college, families would gather around a get together, a ceremonial ritual, and they would tie strings around their hands or arms and say these blessings to them. And just imagine a room full of like 100 people blessing one person, like how powerful that is, and how words can manifest into reality. So I also want to talk about this mythical creature. It's called Moth, and I know that sounds very strange and foreign, but the name of this mythical creature is a Moth, and I'm just gonna read the excerpt from the book. They say the Malu is a giant creature with the body of a man. It's as hairy as a bear, and it has a very large mouth. It will grab your arm and laugh at the sky. Sigh's deep tone-inspired fear. If the sky is sunny and bright, then it will let you go. If the sky grows dark and gray, then it will eat you. So this mythical creature can be compared to Bigfoot. There's more about this creature in the book. And again, the elders in my community, especially my parents, when they talk about this creature, they talk about it as if it's still existing. It's real to them. Their parents and their grandparents' time believe the creature is real and would warn their children and other people when they travel out in the mountains or the jungles or by themselves in the woods. I think it's a very fun creature to learn about. And again, there's more about this creature in the book. I want to stress about like some of the content in this book, that it is, some of it is mature and some of it is about true superstitions in our culture. So, you know, be forewarned about some of the stuff you're going to be coming upon. And I'm going to move on to the other books that I have written, which are, which is a book series, a short book series called The Butcher. And this little slide here is just like an image inside one of the characters' head and how he thinks and how he feels. It's short, so there's only 3 books here, and it's obviously about, you know, a family of psychopaths, family serial killers, and the protagonist is their youngest son, who is struggling with their traditions, and he feels like he doesn't belong in the family, and that's what he's trying to figure out in this whole series. So if you haven't already read The Butchers, their name is very clear, and it talks about exactly who they are. They're a family of villains, and this is just a fun little post that we made for the Facebook page about like, which villain would you identify with? And also, I want to say that this story, the story of the butchers, came to me as just like a small little short story that I put into another story, a different story called With Demons. So they originated from this TV series that I wrote for screen. And while I was pitching this show With Demons to the networks, they were very nice about it. Essentially, they said, we feel like your story is really great, but it's not commercial enough to reach a wide audience. And honestly, it's a supernatural horror. It just has some of the main characters are Hmong shamans, and I just wanted to write something modern, something that has like a dark fairy tale feel to the story, as well as imply some true supernatural stories into it. And at the time, they liked The Butchers. So the people I was pitching to liked the story about this little family of serial killers. And they just said, you should really think about expanding that world, expanding those characters in that story. So that's what I did. Just came home, and then I just expanded the universe and just wrote about the lives of the butchers. And in doing so, I just couldn't help myself. I had to create a character that I can relate to, a character that is of my nationality and comes from my background and has similar beliefs. So obviously I created a Hmong character, and she's very cursed, and she experienced a string of bad coincidences telling her not to go anywhere that day. And this is just an excerpt from one of the chapters, Bad Omens. And I'm just going to read it. I'd say it's a string of bad coincidences. All in one morning, it's like something is trying to tell me not to leave the house today. And now I'm stuck here. So this is May, and she's one of the main characters in the books. And she, at the beginning, like, you don't really get a good feel for who she really is and her background and everything, but there's like breadcrumbs about her and where she comes from. And I'm sorry I'm spoiling things for people, but but you eventually find out she's a very cursed person. And I just couldn't help it. I felt like I had to put my roots into everything I write. So this person who's from a very cursed background meets a family serial killer, essentially, is what's happening to her. Oh, and it's not working. There we go. And this is also another excerpt from a line from the book. Of all the crazy things that are possible, a curse seems very real. And this is Arthur thinking to himself while May is telling the family how cursed she is. I would say that towards the end of the book, you actually find out more about who May is and who Arthur is, and how their relationship is growing. But I just wanted, oh my God, I am not going to feel so bad about like sneaking my supernatural elements into a slasher horror, but that's essentially what I did with The Butchers. And I know it's a short book series that seemed to have ended last year, but the second season is coming this year in either late fall or early winter. And to find out more, you can just go to mothhouse.org to check out any of the short stories that are free to the public. Also, it's also there in the short section as well. There's full chapters from The Butchers from all 3 books that are also featured on there, and some extended excerpts from the book Folklore that's also on the website as well. And that's pretty much it for this presentation. Oh, Heather, I can't hear you.
I'm here. So did you want to tell us more about maybe the inspiration behind the stories, or the writing process, or publishing them? Anything else that you wanted to share?
The writing process, I think I did a lot of research that goes into the different backgrounds of the different cultures. And I mean, there's very little mention about dark magic and ancient spells, and it's very small. It's like I said, it's breadcrumbs throughout the stories of The Butchers. But I know for sure that Folklore is filled with tons of old folk tales, and I would just say superstitions that my parents still believe in today. And I had to do research on that as well. I mean, there's like bridesmaids. That stuff is, I mean, everyone wants to be a bridesmaid, but if you read the book, or if you're going to read the book, there's a section about bridesmaids and the superstition behind it as well. We have, I would say, I don't know, but a history that goes back thousands of years. I mean, from where the people is from, we're not exactly sure, because we've lost our country a long time, a mother country, thousands of years ago. And there's just small recordings of the Hmong people spread throughout Asia. I think in the year 400, the emperor has records of Hmong people. So the Chinese emperor, I'm sorry, has records of the Hmong people. And so it's really hard to write exactly like locations of where these people are located in the book, where they live, like these little villages in the mountains. It's really hard to pinpoint exactly where they existed. And again, it's a folklore, so I have like creative freedom with that. And I just kind of experimented with that and did my research on where my people originated from. But there's tons of questions. Like I asked my parents so many questions to the point where it really annoyed them about certain words. If you break it down, what it means, certain traditions, like why do you guys do this ritual? Or why do you hang the broom by the door every night? Why do you talk to it? What's it gonna do? I mean, with the broom story, it's my mom talks to this broom every night, and it's there to protect us from bad spirits and also from strangers, and it's just to watch the house and the family. So I know that's a very foreign and odd concept about protection, but it's old, and it's an ancient practice, and some people still practice that today. But that, again, that's also mentioned in the book. So I try to keep things grounded in my culture and true to our roots.
Do you want to share anything else, or do you want to open it up for questions?
Yes, we can open it up for questions.
Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask Bo about her writing process or her books or the Hmong culture? I'm curious, what's your writing kryptonite? What's the one thing that kind of freezes you and you're not able to move forward? Or maybe you don't have a writing kryptonite. Maybe you're a writing machine.
Oh my God, I have writer's block all the time. Sometimes I just know that I want to do a story about, Romanian witches, and then I research that. But then, where does it take place, or how many obstacles are they going to come into? I have roadblocks all the time, and what helps me with it is creating a playlist of songs that would inspire me or would be close to the theme of the genre I'm writing. And I would just walk. Sometimes I'll do 30 minutes walk. I remember walking for almost 2 hours one morning and forgetting that I'm walking because I was daydreaming. I was allowing myself to daydream. So I think what's really important for creators to just allow yourself to daydream, because even when you're not writing a word, you still are creating that story in your mind. You don't always have to write everything on paper. I can create like a whole scene in my mind, like on a walk, and don't have to jot it down yet at the moment, because I'm still giving myself creative freedom to build it, to make it bigger or better or different. I can just like, oh, that doesn't, like, I'll go home and 12 hours later, oh, that doesn't work for me. I don't know why I wasted 2 hours on that. But it's part of being a creative writer. Like I always allow myself to daydream. And honestly, some days I get really depressed about it. And I'm like, oh my God, I did not write a word. And then some days I'm like, oh, I'm too hard on myself. Like it's going to be different tomorrow. So just allow yourself to like imagine your characters in that world and live in it a little, pretend to be one of them. I don't know, but it helps you on walks and stuff. So if you don't like to work out like me, take a walk, put in like some good music, and just think about what you want to write.
That's excellent advice. Thanks, Bo. It looks like Karen has her hand raised. She has a question for you. Go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Bo. You mentioned interviewing your parents for the tales so that you could learn them well and to write them in this book. And you also mentioned that you asked so many questions that it got to the point where it maybe bugged them a little bit. So now that you've completed the book and it's published and it's between 2 covers and all those things, what do each of your parents think about the book now?
Well, so my parents do not read. It's just they don't read very well, so they do not read. So they know the story like the back of the hand. But I did tell them, I did warn them. I said, hey, it's a little different from the original story, only because I think the hero of the story deserves a hero's journey. In the original story, I would be honest and say that Sia, the main character, goes on a journey, and she like conquers it within 2 minutes. That's not realistic. Supposedly she travels to the ends of the earth, and if you look up any hero's journey in any movie, any book, that is a very long journey. But in the original story, it all happens so fast. She gets there, she does what she's supposed to do, and then she does something else she's not supposed to do, and then she pays the consequences, and then she gets back home. It was so fast, and I was like, wait a minute, do you know like the ends of the earth probably take people days? I mean, Lord of the Rings, right? 3 movies. But I'm just saying it would take somebody days to reach the end, the highest peak on Earth, the ends of the earth. You're talking like days and days. So many things can happen on the way. Why would you cut it short? But it had just been told that way for so long that my parents didn't have an answer for me. They're like, well, that's how it goes. It's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna like make it longer.
Looks like we have a few questions for you in the chat. Can you share with us how the Moth House Press got started?
I would say that it's after trying to shop my scripts format. Everything I used to write for the last like, I don't know, 6 years was formatted for feature films or TV. And it's hard to, it was not easy, I would say, to get myself in front of these people and then pitch to them these stories that are very foreign to them, that they've never heard before, when they're asking for new voices and new stories, which doesn't make sense at all. But after like so many years of just so many no's, I was like, okay, well, I just want to put this out there now. I just want people to read it now. I just want to share it now. I just want to stop like having these written stories sitting on my shelf or in my laptop, and I need to do something about it. So I've been collecting dozens and dozens of folklore over these years. Most of it obviously is on audio and video, but I mean, it takes quite a while to translate them from the Hmong oral story to a page or a script. So yeah, so I just decided, hey, I'm gonna start a small business, and I'm gonna just make a website and have a lot of it for free for the public, and publish some of it into books. The stories that are worthy to be in books, I'm just gonna put them in books.
Awesome, thank you. And Jess asks, well, she says she can't wait to read your book, and she wants to know what's the best way that we can purchase your book and how we can support you as a local author and share these stories.
So right now everything is on Amazon. We are trying to get some copies in-house for hard copies. But right now all the paperbacks and it's also on Kindle as well. On Kindle it's actually, I think Kindle Direct. They're free on Kindle Direct. And then, Kindle Unlimited. So sorry. Kindle Unlimited is free for Folklore the book. And I think The First Butcher is also free on there. And then the print books, you can also do print on demand from Amazon.
Thank you. Yes, and Bo generously donated copies of her works as well to the library. So I'll put the link in the chat. You can check them out from the library as well. And I'll also put the link to Amazon. Let's see. The next question is, any sneak peek of anything you'll be working on in the future?
Well, yes. So right now, I showed you the slide with demons. And honestly, I've been working on that for so long, but I'm turning it into another short book series as well. Again, that's where the Butchers originated from. And I'm more excited about trying to put out with demons this year, only because it's just a story that I've loved and worked on for so long. If you go to the Moth House Facebook page, there's a whole bunch of teasers about it. There's tons of posts about it, or Instagram or Twitter. There's quite a few like sneak peeks that go into the characters or some of the excerpts from it. We are, okay. Also, there's another nonfiction book that I'm working on at the moment, and it's about my mother's childhood home. She grew up in a very small village on top of a mountain that's very haunted, and they had to, and because it was in Laos, the locals had these rules that this little Hmong village had to follow for like decades. They just lived there because it was available to them for free. And my mom and her families, they travel in like with a tribe, with a clan, and they just live off the land. So they took that haunted place and just made it work. But there was just so many bizarre traditions and rituals that they didn't understand that they had to go through. But that book is more of like a memoir from my mother's story.
Okay, the next question is it difficult for you to add the details to folklore when the stories and details are so dark?
Yes, I have to tone some of them down. I'm gonna be honest and say I toned a lot of it down. Um, Sometimes I read it back to my mom and I translate to her and she's like, you forgot to put this in it, or why did you leave this out? And it's just like, well, like, I don't know if the people are ready to read that, or I don't know if it's okay to talk about that. Like, I really try to I don't know. I didn't want things to be like such a big culture shock to the readers. And but yes, definitely it was a little bit, it was quite difficult to like just shave off some of the darker stuff. Even in the traditions or beliefs or rituals, there's some really dark rituals that some shamans did practice a long time ago. And when I hear about it, I'm like, oh my god, I like the stuff I see on TV is not so far off. Like the made up like sorcery and shows about like witches, and I don't want to say anything about my culture, but but these things are not very like far off from the old like traditional ways that people used to practice with magic. So it's like it's shocking to me when I hear it, and I'm like, "What? Are you sure this is our culture? Are we sure that my ancestors practice this stuff?" But yes, it was a little process for me to like just sort things out and say this is probably appropriate and this is like on borderline okay or not okay.
Okay, our next question is from Crystal. She's a teacher and she's wondering, as you were growing up in school, if there was anyone in the school that helped you with your writing journey, and if not, if there were people outside of school in your life that inspired you and helped you with your journey.
Um, when I was a child, it was really hard to learn English in my household because my parents, well, my mom was a single parent, and then we also lived with my sister and my brother-in-law, but they didn't speak English. So English was like a very difficult language for me to pick up. Um, I didn't learn it until I was in second grade, like fully speaking full sentences, or reading a book out loud. I didn't get the right, I think I would say, tutoring or attention. I know classrooms are full of like so many students. It's so hard for a teacher to divide their time. But coming from a different country, knowing only one language, and then getting thrown into a classroom and trying to learn a completely different language. I was telling one of my friends that, yeah, I remember just going through years and years of just sitting in the class, and my teacher would just be up there teaching. I have no idea what she's talking about, and then they'll just hand me all these paperwork, and I don't know what I'm doing. But I think it was my second grade teacher and the principal, and I forgot who else was in the room, and they were having a debate about whether holding me back or letting me advance to the third grade because I didn't speak any English and I didn't know what I was doing. And then my teacher actually vouched for me, and she said, I think she's a very smart girl. She just needs extra tutoring, like somebody to give her more time and help her with all these subjects. And that's what happened. So I got tutored twice a day during lunch, and so my lunch and recess. And then at the end of the day, I also went to tutoring again, and it was all like reading and writing. And then that like 6 months later, I knew how to read and write. So that teacher I would probably credit with helping me my process of learning to write and read.
Nice, thanks for sharing. Jean's curious if you're based locally now and if you've ever spent some time in Laos.
I have never been to Laos. I was born in Thailand in a refugee camp, and I've never been to Laos. My parents have gone to Laos. Majority of my entire life, I've lived here in the States. I am locally here now in La Crosse, but I lived most of my childhood was in California.
And Stephen's curious if the term Moth House has some significance to your heritage.
So my Hmong name, I mean, it's Bo, but when we came over to the US, it's actually Kabo. And the person doing our paperwork couldn't spell my name. So Bo and Bao was a very common name. And so they just spelled it Bao or Bo. But Kabo means moth. So my name means moth. And then, so it's my house. So welcome to my house. but yes, that's what it means.
That's awesome. Does anyone else have any questions? Feel free to unmute yourself, or if you'd like to pop them in the chat, that's fine as well.
I have a question. I'm an educator. I work at the high school. We have developed new curriculum, and in our 11th grade curriculum, we're doing short stories and retellings of short stories. I feel like this will fit perfectly in our curriculum. We are doing some Hmong stories as well. I'm curious to know, I haven't read your book. It looks very interesting. I looked on Amazon already. I would like to order it, but I'm just curious, since you're here, I would like to ask you, do you think this would be age appropriate for high schoolers?
I think it is. Again, like, I mean, I remember being in high school and I've read some books that I thought was inappropriate in high school that were even darker than that, but or some coming of age books that really shocked me to the core. I think it's just because of the culture differences. I don't, I mean, if you read it and feel like it's not appropriate to teach in class or to share it, that's understandable. It is a young adult book, but honestly, I don't know if there's no language, no inappropriate language in it. I just think it's the tone and some of the contents in the book that kind of dark. There isn't anything inappropriate in the book that happens. It's just, I think it's just the tone of the story that's dark.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, the next question is about the butchers, and we know you wrote that in 3 acts. So do you think you'll make it a stage production in the future, or maybe a live storytelling with pieces like Folklore?
I am in the process of turning that into scripts again, going backwards. And I do have these events that I missed this year, and maybe I'll do them again later at the end of the year, or start them over next year to go and repitch these stories to the networks that I did have meetings with a few years ago.
Was it difficult releasing and publishing in the middle of COVID? Did that add any other challenges to everything?
Yeah, I thought about that. I really did. And then somebody said, well, are you writing to make money? Like, are you trying to make a living off of this? Or do you just want to publish these stories so they're out there? Because that's what your goals have been for the last couple of years. And I was like, yeah, thank you for reminding me. I guess I don't have to make a living off of this. That is important, but the more important aspect of me being a writer is so that I can share my stories. And like the book Folklore and some of these Hmong short stories, I think those stories are really crucial to my culture and its existence. We're so small that I feel like I want to give us more exposure to the world. I mean, just a few years ago when I was going to college here, nobody knew what Hmong people were. And I was like, no way, lacrosse is full of Hmong people. What do you mean you don't know who Hmong people are? Are you? And then the second question is, are you from Mongolia? No. Maybe some of my ancestors were, but no, I'm not from Mongolia. But yeah, so it was a difficult time to like decide whether I should release it or not. But when it came down to it, like I wasn't really looking at the money aspect of business. I just wanted to publish these stories and share them and have them out there.
We're so glad that you did. And the next question is curious if you are thinking about perhaps putting them in audiobook format.
Yeah, so that has been brought up to me a couple times, and I definitely am looking into that.
Excellent. And Sheila is curious if you've had the opportunity to gather stories from any of the many elders of the Hmong community.
Have I had the opportunity to gather stories from any other? My aunt, who has passed away last year, she would tell me tons of stories. So I have gathered some from her. I have some relatives that live nearby in La Crosse that I haven't met before either, and they're such great storytellers. Yeah, the Hmong community is full of storytellers. I would tell you, like, I mean, before there was a box TV, they used to just tell each other stories around the fire before bedtime, when they're farming, when they're out on the road walking together. Like, everyone is literally a storyteller. So yes, I mean, go to the farmers market. I bet you 100% majority of those farmers vendors are storytellers. But yes, I have had some opportunities to gather more stories from other storytellers.
And since we're talking about the farmers market, did you want to talk at all about the other organization that you founded for the Hmong community? And
Yes, so I founded for Independent Hmong Farmers Corp. And this year, I mean, the previous years, I've just been bringing awareness about them and where they have their gardens, which markets they go to. I would feature items that are not very familiar to the local customers, such as like bitter melons and how to cook them. There's a yellow watermelon that my uncle grows, and no one's even heard of it before, but it tastes like honey and it's yellow because that's how watermelons are supposed to be. And the red ones have just been breeded over thousands of years. So learning something new all the time. Anyways, so the site for a year has just been filming and recording and just giving more exposure to these Hmong farmers. A lot of time we get customers on a daily basis asking us if we got our produces from China or Mexico, but no, everyone grows their stuff locally. A lot of them are in Homan, Bangor, and all throughout La Crosse County. But this year we are trying to raise funds to help them as a relief fund from the pandemic that has hit them hard last year and this year as well. So I'm not a chef, but I love to cook. And we're just doing this short series cooking show as a nonprofit fundraiser, and it's open to the public. People can watch it, people can donate if they want to. But I'm not gonna guarantee that my food tastes great, but it'll be a fun show. So check out La Crosse Local. They have the pages and all the links to everything, to the GoFundMe page. There's more information on their website. They're also helping us host the show as well.
that's excellent. Thank you. I just put the link in the chat. So yes, please do check out that fundraiser. Does anyone have any other questions they'd like to ask this evening? Bo, are there any words of wisdom you'd like to share for any other aspiring writers out there?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. I'm pretty new to this as well. So I mean, I'm open to any questions anybody has for me. Ask me anything.
I'm curious if you would visit classrooms to inspire writing among students.
Yes, I would. Yes, definitely. If I can just, I mean, reach out to me and we'll work something out. And I would love to do that.
Any other final questions for the evening before we wrap things up? All right, well, if that's all, thank you all so much for joining us. And Bo, thank you so much to you for spending all of your time and talents and sharing with us. It was a pleasure having you on this evening. And we wish you all the best with all your ventures and fundraisers. And we hope that everyone in the area is able to support you. So again, we'll put the links out there and please do check them out and read the books. And thank you so much again. It was a wonderful presentation.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, everyone.